A major East Coast winter storm signal is growing stronger, and this is not something to ignore. Cold air is already locked in across a large part of the country, and as we move toward the weekend, the atmosphere is lining up in a way that supports a high-impact system. The main time window to watch begins early Saturday, intensifies Saturday night, and continues into Sunday and early Monday, when conditions could deteriorate rapidly in several regions. Right now, the highest confidence zone stretches from North Carolina into Virginia, where confidence has increased over the last 24 hours. Snow chances here are running between 70 and 90%, with daytime highs struggling to reach the lower 30s and overnight lows falling into the teens. In this zone, a widespread 6 to 10 inches of snow is possible, and travel impacts could begin as early as Saturday morning, especially around Raleigh, Greensboro, Charlotte, Richmond, and Virginia Beach. Along the I-95 corridor from Washington, D.C. through Baltimore and into Philadelphia, the setup remains sensitive to track changes, but the risk is clearly there. Snow probabilities range from 60 to 80%, with temperatures staying below freezing throughout the event. Accumulations of 4 to 8 inches remain possible, and strong winds could further reduce visibility, making road and air travel difficult late Saturday into early Sunday. Farther north into New Jersey, New York City, and New England, the outcome depends heavily on how close the low-pressure center tracks to the coast. Highs remain in the mid-20s with lows in the teens or lower, and snow chances range from 40 to 70%. If the storm shifts even slightly west, snowfall totals could increase quickly, including the potential for 8 to 10 inches in parts of Massachusetts and northern New England. All three major models, the European, GFS, and Canadian, are now showing a rapidly strengthening coastal low, though they still differ on exact placement. There is growing support for pressure falls strong enough to qualify as bombogenesis, which would mean increasing winds and heavier snow on the backside of the system. This is not hype, it is a real meteorological process, and it raises the risk level wherever the storm intensifies most. The reason this storm has such potential is the cold air already in place. Arctic air remains entrenched from the northern plains through the Great Lakes and into the northeast, while southern moisture is being pulled northward. As these energy pieces come together, precipitation becomes heavier and more widespread, especially where cold air is deepest. Behind the storm, an even more dangerous threat emerges, another surge of Arctic air pushing far into the deep south. Freezing temperatures are expected to reach deep into Florida, with wind chills dropping into the 20s across central Florida, and potentially near freezing even in South Florida. In northern Florida, wind chills could fall into the single digits, which is extremely rare and dangerous. This level of cold brings serious consequences. Hard freeze conditions raise the risk of burst pipes, agricultural damage, and prolonged power outages, especially in areas not built for this kind of cold. The danger is not limited to Florida, as similar conditions are expected across Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, Tennessee, and Kentucky. Ice also remains a concern in zones where temperatures hover near freezing. Even light icing can bring down trees and power lines, leading to outages that may last days rather than hours. In these situations, impacts escalate quickly, and conditions can become hazardous with little warning. It is important to be clear that uncertainty still exists. A shift of even 50 to 100 miles in the storm track will change snowfall totals and wind impacts significantly. This is why updates over the next 24 to 48 hours are critical, and why JetWeatherX will continue to monitor every model run closely. Preparation should begin now. Charge devices, secure food and water, avoid unnecessary travel, protect exposed pipes, and check on neighbors who may be vulnerable to cold or power loss. Bring pets indoors and make sure you have a plan in case conditions worsen faster than expected. More systems may follow as we move into the next week, which means this pattern is not finished yet. Stay aware, stay prepared, and stay connected with JetWeatherX, because in setups like this, the forecast can change quickly, and every update matters. As this system continues to evolve, the biggest concern going forward is how quickly conditions may deteriorate once the storm begins to organize. Once that low pressure starts deepening offshore, impacts will not ramp up slowly. Snow intensity, wind speeds, and visibility could all worsen within just a few hours, especially late Saturday into early Sunday. This is the kind of setup where conditions look manageable early on and then suddenly become dangerous, particularly for anyone traveling during that window. One thing that cannot be overstated is the wind threat with this storm. As pressure falls rapidly, wind gusts will increase along the coast and inland as well. In areas closer to the low-pressure center, gusts could easily exceed 40 miles per hour, and where snowfall is ongoing, that creates the potential for whiteout conditions. Even where snowfall totals are not extreme, blowing snow can still shut down roads and make driving extremely risky. Coastal areas need to remain alert for additional hazards beyond snow.
Strong winds combined with very low pressure can lead to coastal flooding and beach erosion, especially during high tide cycles. This is another factor that emergency managers will be watching closely, particularly from the Carolinas up through parts of the Mid-Atlantic. Small changes in timing or track can make a big difference in who sees these coastal impacts. Farther inland, the main issue becomes prolonged cold combined with snow-covered infrastructure. When temperatures stay below freezing for extended periods, road treatment becomes less effective, and power restoration efforts slow down significantly. This is especially concerning in regions that may already be dealing with lingering outages. The colder it gets, the harder it is for crews to work safely and efficiently. Another element to watch is how far south accumulating snow may reach. While heavy snow is expected to focus across North Carolina and Virginia, lighter snow could extend much farther south and west than many people expect. Even a small accumulation in areas not accustomed to winter weather can create major problems, especially on bridges and elevated roadways where temperatures drop faster. At the same time, the reinforcing surge of Arctic air behind the storm adds another layer of risk. This is not a brief cold snap. This air mass is dense, expansive, and slow to move. Once it settles in, temperatures will remain well below average for several days. Wind chills will make it feel even colder, increasing the risk of frostbite and hypothermia for anyone spending extended time outdoors. In the Deep South, this kind of cold creates problems that go beyond discomfort. Pipes freeze and burst, water systems become stressed, and heating demand spikes. In areas where homes are not built to handle prolonged freezing temperatures, even short power outages can become life-threatening situations. This is why preparation ahead of time is so critical, especially for vulnerable populations. Agricultural impacts are also a concern, particularly across Florida and parts of the Gulf Coast. Hard freezes can damage crops and vegetation, and wind-driven cold makes protective measures less effective. These impacts may not be immediately visible, but they can have lasting economic consequences well after the cold air retreats. It is also important to recognize that storms like this take a toll mentally and physically, especially when they arrive on top of ongoing hardship. Extended cold, repeated systems, and power disruptions can wear people down. That is why checking in on neighbors, friends, and family members is not just encouraged, but necessary during events like this. From a forecast standpoint, confidence is increasing in the overall pattern, but details still matter. The exact placement of the heaviest snow band, the peak wind corridor, and the sharpest temperature drops will become clearer with each new model run. This is not a one-and-done update kind of situation. This is a system that demands close monitoring right up until it arrives. As we move through the next 24 to 48 hours, model agreement will either tighten further or reveal new shifts. A small eastward trend would reduce impacts for some inland areas but increase coastal risks. A westward trend would bring heavier snow farther inland and raise the threat of widespread travel disruptions. Both outcomes are still on the table at this stage. For those asking whether this storm will be a historic event, it is still too early to say that definitively. However, the ingredients are there for a high-impact winter storm, especially when combined with the extreme cold that follows. History shows that it is often the combination of hazards, not just one factor, that makes storms truly dangerous. This is why the focus should not be solely on snowfall totals. Wind, temperature, duration, and timing all matter. A moderate snowfall with strong winds and bitter cold can be far more disruptive than a heavier snow that falls under calmer conditions. Context is everything with winter weather. As always, the goal here at Jet Weather X is to keep this information clear, calm, and actionable. There is no benefit in panic, but there is real value in readiness. Understanding what could happen allows you to make better decisions before conditions worsen. Over the coming days, additional updates will refine the forecast and highlight any new areas of concern. If warnings or watches are expanded, that will be a sign that confidence is increasing and impacts are becoming more likely. Staying informed gives you time, and time is the most valuable resource ahead of a storm like this. If you are in the potential impact zone, now is the time to review your plans, limit unnecessary travel, make sure you are ready for cold, snow, and possible power interruptions, and take small steps early that can make a big difference later. This pattern is active and it's not finished yet. More disturbances remain possible and winter is not done making its presence felt. Stay prepared, stay aware, and stay connected with Jet Weather X, because the next update could be an important one.